Okay, so for those of you watching, I'm here talking with Jay Martin. He's the president of Cambridge House International, which is a group that puts on Canada's largest investment conferences, namely the Resource Investment Conference. So I thought, with everything that's going on in the markets, it'd be good to hear from Jay, and you might want to listen in. Things are changing so fast that it's almost pointless to talk about the headlines today or yesterday. But one thing that's kind of fascinating is that no matter where you are in the world, you're seeing stuff change right now. And I think that's probably what you've been noticing as well.
Yeah. And, to your earlier point there, it's like last week was probably the craziest week of most people's lives, to the point where we became, every single day last week was like an avalanche of show-stopping headlines, right? From travel bans to exponential infection curves to borders closing down, like million population quarantines. Like at any given day in normal life, one of those headlines on its own would have stopped the press. And we were hit with like 5, 6 every single day. And I couldn't just, every morning you just hitting the phone, Wall Street Journal, bam, 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 bam. Here's what's going on. And it's just chaos, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it's
an avalanche of new information, and it's like overload of information, and yet we don't have enough information.
Yeah.
But I thought that's where these kind of talks might be helpful, is folks probably want to get as much information as they can. We're all self-isolating, so we feel like little islands. And it helps to kind of hear what everyone else is going through. And
that's interesting. Yeah. I wonder how much that is impacting people's resiliency right now. I know that I'm super fortunate. I live in this house with my 2 kids and my wife, and with all the uncertainty and anxiousness that creates, at least we're forced to be home with our families, right? And I think that adds a level of comfort that we're fortunate if you have that. It's with this crash, it's, like you've known me and my business now, Bryant, for forever. And you've seen us go through a crash before in 2012 when, the commodities sector really got slammed, and we watched about 73% of our clientele go bankrupt or become defunct or become unable to afford us. And, we weathered through. You do what you have to do to survive, and you make it. But the difference today is that we're all in this. Like, it's not my industry or your industry. The whole world is coming to a frozen halt.
Yeah. It is the whole. I was talking to a colleague in Ireland just before this, and I was talking to a client who's in China, trying to get the perspective a month ahead of wherever we are. And it's interesting that we could talk to these people as if they live down the street and we had an earthquake or something. And it's unifying everyone together.
That's the best.
Definitely had some nice family moments, like you mentioned, and appreciating kind of the moments as it is.
Puts it in perspective, right? When like these crisis events are always traumatic and heartbreaking. But I think they do create a sense of bonding, right, between people. Often when we come out of these scenarios, we're closer and we're more thoughtful with our neighbors. And I've definitely found myself thinking about that, like more how important community is, right? And then as all services ground to a halt, it's like we become exposed to how vulnerable we are, right? How reliant, we all kind of feel like we've been caught a bit flat-footed because of how dependent we are on these systems that are really out of our control. And you take those away from us, all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, right? How self-reliant am I really, And for me, that's like emphasize the importance of community. Like I'm spending a lot more time these days working, but also texting friends, calling friends, checking in with neighbors, family, because I think it creates that drive in people to like check in with your neighbor and be there for people if they need it. And I hope it, despite some of the challenges and the
that's the positive side, is it's creating that unity. It's I just went blank, but there's a few positive things to be found in this, and that's definitely one of them. I think appreciating, you do appreciate everyone's contribution and how everything kind of works with everyone coming together, and that's a bit tricky right now. Oh, I was going to say the other positive thing. I'm super proud of how everyone's been approaching this, particularly our Canadian side, and the messaging, and everyone's buying into it and isolating for the most part. I think the most interesting thing is going to be, for example, looking back, even on this conversation, it could be in a week, in a month, in 6 months. Have you thought that far ahead, or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because I run an event company. We do a number of things, but a big piece of our business is events. I feel like we got, because of that, we're kind of on the front lines and saw this coming, maybe, for better or for worse, more than before most. And so I've moved my team to remote work a month ago, and we shut down our office 3 weeks ago, and started getting ready for this. And it'll be really interesting to see how all of this trickles down, right? Because we're going to get through this pandemic. We're humans. We're incredibly resilient creatures, and we've come through far worse scenarios in the past. And despite maybe feeling like we've been flat-footed, we're also remarkably prepared and able to self-organize, like you just said. I mean, everyone's on the same team right now, right? And it's like social distancing, self-isolation, supporting our neighbors, doing whatever we need to do. We're doing it. And we're going to get through this, right? That's for sure. We know that much. And what's on the other side, I think, is like one of the most interesting parts of this, because, like any major catastrophic event, it changes the way we live after the fact, right? And I think that, there's some really interesting trends that we might see come out of this, like how many companies up until this point just had the assumption they needed a bricks and mortar office space. And now they're learning that in fact they don't. Right. And how's that going to change the work life moving forward? And
I think there's going to be just from the sample size and just from the experience, I think there's going to be a large number of people that find that they like working from home, or that they can incorporate it 1 or 2 days a week, or
100%
or 100%. But you made me think of something then. Another reason I wanted to talk to you here, I think this is a time for leaders to really lead, right? Because sometimes things are rolling along smoothly and everything seems easy, but when the rubber hits the road, that's the true test of a leader and leadership. And I think what you were just talking about, you pulled everyone out a month early. You're doing everything you can. You run a group of people there, and you're kind of the guy at the front of the ship. So it's great to see that, and to see these kind of strong leaders pull through and pull us through this. I think a lot of people need it. And
we all do, right?
Yeah.
You know what, our corporate culture has actually like remarkably improved to those points about like how crisis brings people together, and it makes you think about your team differently too, right? Because you get in this zone where you're like, company, employees, systems, productivity. And then you get hit with something like this, and all of a sudden you're really reminded of the human element of everybody. And it brings the company together as more of a family and a support system, and a reminder that like, I've got your back and you've got mine, and that's how this works. And it's actually quite refreshing. And we've doubled down on our huddles. We're having all company huddles now every morning and every afternoon, just to check in. And we obviously cover all the operational details about the projects we're working on, but we also talk about mental health a lot more these days, right? Did you get outside today? Did you get some sun? I mean, how nice is that in Vancouver? Well, I'm in Squamish, but it's been gorgeous, right? Did you get out for a walk, right? Did you get enough sleep last night? Did you spend some time with your spouse or your kids or your loved ones, or did you call somebody? Like, I think right now that stuff's hypercritical, and it's becoming a key bullet point to our all staff huddles, which is lovely, to be honest. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vitamin D when you can get it. And are you still jumping in the lake? I know you do that for the immunity. 2 minutes in an ice cold lake.
But God, yeah. Now more than ever. Absolutely. Yeah. And the trail systems here are smoking busy. I'm sure it's the same in Vancouver. I talked to a buddy this morning. He said he was on the seawall last night. And it was like he'd never seen it that busy.
Oh yeah, the mountain biking is everyone's up there. Got the same idea.
Right. Yeah.
Golf courses are shut, but people are just kind of walking out there with their clubs. It's I mean, we don't want to get too date specific because it could change. Well, I think it's just interesting to who would have ever thought that? Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Which brings, I did have one question here, which is like, did we see this coming? And it sounds like you did to some degree, but I think in a broader term, I don't think we did, right? I don't think anybody saw this coming, and I think that's part of the scale of it or the impact. And it goes to show you that you can prepare quite a lot, but you can't always do everything, see everything.
Yeah, totally. And it's that what is that analogy, like when times are good, you think they'll be good forever, right? Why would things ever change? Working in the markets, we absolutely knew this was coming, in that we knew, the US bull market would end, right? I think everybody, was clued into that was going to happen. And after an 11-year hyper profitable bull market, we knew the ending was going to be spectacular. Obviously no one knew how or when this would occur, but we knew it was on the horizon. And so we had prepared in-house. I'm actually leaner today than I'd ever been in my shop when we made that move about 18 months ago, not knowing, but knowing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's been interesting to watch how the markets are responding to this, right? Like it's this massive liquidity crisis. And, we always talk about how in times of uncertainty, investors or individuals go to hard assets, things that have stood the test of time and that have inherent value. But it's not been the case yet. The only asset class that is moving is US dollars, right? It shows when people are really scared, like fighting in the streets over toilet paper scared. They go to a currency that everybody recognizes, and that's paper money. That's USD. Right. And I think that's going to change. I think once this, we're like peak mania.
Is the gold spike? Is the gold going up?
No, absolutely. Anything that has a bid is getting hit. Right. For sure. Right now, the only thing that people want is US dollars. And that's global right now. It's amazing. And that, when you think about it, you're like, well, of course that makes sense in times of real fear. You want to be able to transact on the street. You want to be able to, buy the necessities wherever you are. Right. And paper money does that for you. Gold as a store of wealth, absolutely long-term, and has withstood that test countless times through the rise and fall of hundreds of empires. The US empire today being the same, it will, right? But people will go to that hard asset. I think like they'll go to things like property, that have just withstood the test of time again and again and again and again. But I think this like peak fear has to deplete a little bit, so once we get into the spring and, if what we're thinking, how this virus might perform once the climate adjusts a little bit, it doesn't survive very well in warmer temperatures. That's what we seem to think right now. Then this will maybe have a seasonal depletion like the flu in general, and maybe gets back to a little bit more normal this summer. And then I think these hard asset classes are going to rock. I think that's where because you think everything on the planet's been sold right now, every asset class, right? And all that cash has gone to US dollars. Well, that is going to be reallocated once things calm down a little bit. And so where's it going to go first? Conservative bets is probably where it's going to go first, right? Things that are tangible and that have inherent value, generally.
I think real estate, I think, falls into that category. I think people are appreciating their homes more than ever right now, getting enjoyment out of them. Also, I think Canada must look pretty good to a lot of people. And
well, yeah, is it ever going to be, Bryant, cheaper to finance a home than it is right now?
No, maybe in a week or two, but
sure, yeah. Right.
But no, but I think the same thing. It'll be a rocky road, 6 months or so, and then you might see a lot of that starting to come back and taking advantage of the opportunities, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah,
We
I
don't
mean,
want
I'm
to get,
renegotiating my mortgage right now, and
yeah,
anybody who's able to, I'm telling them, call your banker right now. Do this.
yeah.
This
If
is
you
like a
can
once
lock it
in a
in, because
lifetime.
I think, well, things can get quite volatile also after these kind of events. And if you can lock it in for, or at least if you're shopping, get your pre-approval for 6 months, and then it's kind of hard to buy a home right now. With they've recommended open houses to shut down,
Yeah,
and obvious stuff. But yeah, I know that things are super busy there for you, and I appreciate all your time. So I don't want to go too long, but I've got some note here that says we're charting uncharted waters. It's exciting and challenging, but not impossible. You know, the way that the men from Europe left the shores and went
yeah,
to look for North America. It ended up, it was terrifying and scary, and they didn't know where they were going. But when they got there, it worked out, and that's kind of where everybody is now. We don't know what we're looking at, but that's part of the fun.
yeah. And one thing's for sure, we're growing. Growth being probably the most painful thing humanly available to us. It's
Yeah.
something we're all being pushed into right now, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It makes us better, right? Like tough situations like this make us better. Whether they bring us together, make us better that way, make us more dependent,
Yeah.
help us understand that we can do a lot more with a lot less. That's been my biggest realization over the last month as we're looking at, every expense coming out of my company and out of my household. It's like, do we need this? Do we need that? Really? Probably not. What can
Yeah.
we do here with less? And getting closer to that sort of minimalist lifestyle, which I think is the healthier place to live. We get sucked into this consumption trends, which is easy to do, right? But it's not necessary and probably not great for your mental
Yeah.
health in the long term.
We're all going to come out of this better, fitter, with cleaner houses, more efficient.
Yeah, I don't know about the cleaner houses. My kids are. I don't know what you're talking about on that one.
Anyways, thanks so much, Jay. Appreciate the call, and stay safe out there.
You too, brother. Good chatting.